right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. Looks like our attendee number is rapidly climbing. We are so thrilled to have all of you joining us. I am going to pass it to our fantastic speaker, Frank, to kick off our hands-on workshop today.
Hey, good morning, everyone. If you are in the US, good afternoon, good evening. If you are in Europe, like myself, welcome to this workshop about AI-powered data engineering. So we talk about data engineering, everything you should know as a data engineer if you want to get started or want to learn more about data engineering with Databricks. And we also talk about, obviously, all the AI support that we have these days. Now, before we go into the details, I want to say thank you to a whole group of people. We had Sophia. She was the one who welcomed you, and she's organizing the whole workshop. And we have 4 subject matter experts for your questions. So there's Craig, there's Jamin, there is Lei, and Ram. And you have the possibility to ask your questions. Please be mindful about the topic. I'm always saying this. Sometimes people, bring their support cases. This is not the platform for that. So this is really about what we're talking about, data engineering, learning how to use data live tables, workflows, serverless notebooks, the AI tools. This is what we want to cover. So please focus your questions around this if possible. They're all experts. They are actually the people I go to if I have questions. So you're like really, really lucky in this workshop. It's all live, so you can ask your questions. Right. Before we go into the real content, before we go into the topic, I want to remind you we have a working lab environment for you guys. And you should all have this sign up link already. If you don't, Sophia will share this on Zoom, and you can still sign up. If you sign up, that's not a big deal. You get to a window where you put in your email, and then you get the connection details like username and password and the URL that you need to connect to. But if you connect, you should do this in an incognito window. Sometimes we have people complaining that they're not able to, log into the lab. And I tell you what, guys, it's usually 99, 98% because people are not using this incognito window. So use an incognito window. It will save you a lot of trouble. You typically get there on the top right of your browser, like new incognito window. That's one thing. Then we do have labs, and some people might have the lab guide already. Don't start with the labs yet. What I want to do is I want to walk you through those labs, and then I want to show you, like demonstrate you how I am doing them. And then you should get a pretty good impression of like what you're supposed to do. And then you still have this high level lab guide and you can follow that. And also, if you can't keep up with the speed, I'm trying to slow down. You should have enough time to get a rough overview and to probably finish most of those labs. But if you can't keep up, don't worry. You have the whole lab environment for 2 more days. And also the labs, I'm going to give you some notebooks. They all exist on GitHub in a GitHub repo. They don't go away. It's a public repo. You can use them anytime. So if you like the labs, if you want to replicate this with your data engineering team at home, at your company, you're more than welcome to do so. Drop me a note. We always love to hear if you reuse content. So nothing is taken away from you. You can have the lab environment for 2 more days, and you can always use these labs until we upgrade them, and then it will be just a new version. We also share the slides, and we share a recording with you after the event. So if you have to run away, and if you want to rewatch this, you can do that, or you can share it with your colleagues. And later, we're going to use this GitHub repo. You can see the link now already, but we're going to share this on Zoom again. So don't worry. You don't have to write it down. Now it's basically github.com, Databricks, and then TMM, because we're the technical marketing team. This is where the TMM is coming from. And then later we only clone one folder, and I'm going to give you that folder name. Also, again, it's called Pipelines Workshop. That was the initial name of this workshop. Don't worry about the GitHub link. We're going to share this later again. Don't worry if you can't, finish all the labs. You can finish them 2 days later, and you will still have the lab environment. Also, this lab environment is not very special. It's just for you, pre-created, so you have something to work with. I think you could probably even do this at home in your own account. Right, and well, this is the sign up page. It's an older screenshot. You see it says September 5th here, but I think it looks very similar. You put in your name and your email, and then you get the credentials to log in. Now, I trust you can all do this. Another reminder, if it's not working, the login, please use an incognito window. You save yourself a lot of trouble. Okay, and this gets us to the content. So at Databricks, we actually believe that your AI, the AI that you built on your data is what sets you apart. So this is what gives you the competitive advantage. And this is, the real thing that makes it worth for an enterprise, which is like much more than the classic prompt engineering that you see sometimes. And if you think about like, why is this happening? Well, GPT and all these other systems, they're trained on all the data that is on the internet. So you can, everything that was ever posted on Reddit, and you can ask them all these questions. But this is probably not what is giving you an advantage. What is giving you an advantage is if you can apply this AI on your own data. And even then, it's sometimes not that easy. We have some cases where this went wrong. Can actually quote an example that happened here in Germany, where I live. There was a bank and they offered a chatbot, and people loved that chatbot. And you could ask it questions like, how can I renew my credit card? What is if I don't have enough money on my account, etc. And then someone just said like, how do I set like access privileges for an S3 bucket? And it also answered these questions. So the word was spreading, and everyone was using this bank AI chatbot, to solve their IT problems. And it's obviously not what this bank wanted to do, because they had all this load. And there's many other cases. I think there was one case in the US where a car company was, if you ask the chatbot of that car company, so what's the best car? If I have a family of 4, I need some more space. I have a dog. I like outdoors. And then that chatbot would recommend the car from the competitor. So this is all what you don't want. You want AI working on your data, but you have to have some guardrails. And at the end, you require a platform. I think that's very important. So it will change the world, but you have to have the right platform. And here at Databricks, we believe actually what you might already know, the Lakehouse platform is the best platform for this. So if you think about this Lakehouse platform, or if you have never heard about the Lakehouse before, it's this idea of having a unified platform that gives you the best of both worlds, from a data warehouse and from a data lake. So that's a unified platform, the Lakehouse. And if you look at this high level architecture, almost architecture diagram here, the very foundation layer is open source. It's Delta. Delta.io is the open source project. Actually, these days it's Delta Uniform. It kind of allows you to read and write data from the Delta format and from Iceberg the same way. It is a thin layer on top of your data lake. So the approach is lake first. You just leave your data in the S3 buckets that you might already have. And it's just a thin abstraction layer that gives you all this quality of service that you might know from a data warehouse, but it's still kind of data lake at the end. So you get the cheap cost, you get the high availability, the incredible durability of a data lake, but you also get the transactions, and you get the rollbacks and the versioning and the deep and shallow clones that you might know from your data warehouse. So it's really the best of both worlds. And then the other thing that should be actually, it should be highlighted because this is maybe these days one of the most important parts of the Lakehouse is Unity catalog and the governance system. And we will cover this later in practice when we do the labs. But you will see this governance is really, really cool because it allows you to govern everything in one place. And it kind of applies to SQL, it applies to tables, it applies to pipelines, it also applies to functions, it applies to AI models, basically everything under one system. And that's like a big differentiator to, other separate systems where you have separate mechanisms of governance and where you never see like one lineage diagram covering all of the included components. And for us, it will be very easy, hopefully, to show you this. And then some of Databricks acquired Mosaic. So we have Mosaic AI as the AI system. We're not doing a lot of AI today, but I'm showing you some AI-enabled assistants that make your life easier as a data engineer. And actually, we do the pipelines lab first, and then I have a small lab where you can kind of play and explore the Databricks assistant, maybe briefly talk about Genie as well. And that's the core that we want to talk about today, Delta Live Tables. That's the system to build streaming data pipelines. We always say streaming data pipelines because that's the big thing. It allows you to process streaming data. And many people talk about streaming data, and I go to conferences sometimes and people talk about streaming data and show you slides. What we want to do here is we really want to work with streaming data. So I brought you an online transaction system that is processing loan requests, and it has different output formats and locations, and we want to integrate with them. So we have up to 1,000 people very often in this workshop, and all of you should be able to integrate with this online transaction processing system, and you will be using Delta Live Tables. So that's the big thing. Once we have the DLT pipeline, very often we think like, okay, that's just a pipeline. How do we get this thing to work? Well, first of all, it works standalone, but then very often we want to put this in a bigger frame, and the bigger frame is workflow. So workflows is orchestrating everything within your Lakehouse, and the Delta Live Table is one of these things that we can orchestrate. And then we have Databricks SQL, which is more a SQL view that is maybe a little bit more convenient for the people that come from a data warehouse background. All right, so that's the Lakehouse. And if you think about the Lakehouse, plus what I already told you about, this AI movement that we see these days and generative AI and all the LLMs and the chatbots and this technology, if you put both together, the question is obviously, what do you get? And the answer is this is what gives you what is the data intelligence platform. So the Lakehouse, the Lakehouse, yeah, going the wrong way. The Lakehouse infused with the AI gives us this intelligence platform. And then we can use the AI and apply it to our own data. And this is what sets you apart. Because then you can have like a natural language interface and ask it about your data. You can have the assistant that knows more than a little bit of code, like, some co-pilot that might understand your code and might be able to help you with that code. That assistant then knows your code and the data and the metadata. It understands the schema. It understands the documentation. It understands the comments that you added to your data. So, and that makes a big, big difference. Okay, so remember the Lakehouse architecture that I was showing you? Same thing with the data intelligence engine in the middle. That is not a product. That is more like the underlying technology that is learning from all the interactions that you do, that is learning from additional information it can get from Unity catalog. And that is also kind of understanding your code and all the notebooks, and you can search across them. And this is the underlying layer that we use for the assistant and for something we call Genie that we also have a brief look later. Okay, so it's the Databricks intelligence platform that gives us this foundation for data engineering in the age of AI. That's the short takeaway. Now, if we kind of focus a little bit more on data engineering, it looks like this. What do we mean with data engineering? How does the data intelligence platform play a role in data engineering? Well, it's actually very easy. It is like we have data sources on the left and we have use cases on the right. And very often, just the data source doesn't get you to the use case. So you need to ingest the data, you need to clean up the data, you need to make sure you don't have dirty data, data that causes problems. Then very often you need to orchestrate these steps, and this is all done with data engineering. So data ingestion from different sources. It could be a message queue like Kafka or Kinesis. It could be a database like Oracle. It could be an enterprise application system like Salesforce, or it could be cloud storage like, what I said. It could be just your S3 bucket that you already have. So you need to be able to ingest the data. And don't worry, it doesn't stay with this high level slide. We do this in the lab. Then you need to transform it. You need to clean it up. And then at the end, you need to orchestrate all these steps. And then I told you, we can do this with streaming data, with real-time data. There's a possibility of, having one and the same data pipeline. And then either, just go the batch way and trigger it like every Friday afternoon at 3:30 before you leave the office because you think it takes a while and you want to keep it running, or you just have the same pipeline running continuously as a real-time processing pipeline. And also that's just a tiny setting. It's the same code. I'm going to show you how this is working. And then we have all these use cases at the end, like real-time applications. Maybe you want to share the data. There's this Delta sharing project. It's another open source project that Databricks kind of started as the initial creator. It's now actually used by so many companies. Even Oracle data warehouse is using it to share their data from their data warehouse. In many, many other companies, there's like amazing customer stories. Okay, now workflows, I mentioned that. That's the outer layer, I like to say, like this outer loop that is doing everything, that is making sure the right tasks are executed in the right order. We're going to see that, but we start with maybe the more challenging one, which is data pipelines. But workflow gives you simple authoring. It gives you deep observability and actionable insights, and it comes with proven reliability. So literally thousands of customers use it every single day. And there's actually a very cool blog posting. I was working on this with Yapid Data, and the data engineer from Yapid Data, they actually used an open source system for a while. And when I was talking to them, they said, look, if Databricks workflows existed already when we started, we would never have looked at this open source system. So we like it so much. And they kind of migrated completely to workflows from Airflow. You see the name. They used Airflow before. Airflow, you need to install, you need to configure, you need to manage, you need to debug, you need to, operate. You need to have a team that runs your Airflow. And Databricks Workflows is part of, the Lakehouse. It is a service that you can just use, and you don't need to take care of, of having an ops team that makes sure that this service is always patched and updated and running. Building blocks of workflows, we're going to see later. Basically, what you do is you pick one of these tasks, and such a task could be a Delta Live table pipeline. Then you define how you want to execute one or many tasks. Like the easiest way would be just a sequential order. And then you define how do you want to trigger that workflow. It could be manual, and in this lab, very often I trigger stuff manually to show you, but it could also be scheduled. We have data triggers, we have file arrival triggers, we have continuous streaming. There's many, many other possibilities. DLT is the product to build. It's actually the default way we think you should build your data pipelines because it's the easiest way to build data pipelines. Very often you do ETL with data pipelines, and it is the easiest way because it's declarative. You don't need to write statements, where you copy over data, where you do a lot of these lower level things manually. It's all done for you with DLT. So it's declarative. It makes the coding easier, but it also brings the runtime. It's a serverless runtime. You don't need to configure a cluster for that. You could still if you wanted, but the easier way is to go for serverless. And then you can write your pipelines in an easy way. You get all the runtime support operations done for you automatically, does automatic retries, etc. So you can have like accelerate your development. The infrastructure is managed for you. You can have more confidence in your data because we also have data quality constraints, and it works for batch and streaming. Okay, yeah, it's actually more a link to a blog posting. I recommend you to look at that if you get the slides. We did a benchmark. Our team ingested 1 billion records for the price of under $1. That's an amazing blog to read. It also shows you like an amazingly complicated DLT pipeline. And I want to point this out because obviously here in this lab, we don't want to have the most complicated pipeline. I want to have a pipeline that is just good enough to show you, what you're supposed to know. But if you want to see a complicated one, look at this blog posting. And also in this blog posting, they used the data quality constraints extensively, and they discovered like bad data in the standard benchmark that was run for us. So there's lots of cool stories. It's a blog posting that I highly recommend. And 1 billion rows for less than $1. Okay, if we are working with DLT, Delta Live tables, you're getting used to using streaming tables, and a streaming table it's a simplified table to ingest and process streaming data. So it's doing exactly once data ingestion. It works for append-only sources. That means it's typically what you do with data ingestion. You take one message, one record out of Kafka, you add it to your table. This is what a streaming table does. So you see, actually, whoops, what's happening? You see the Kafka example looks like this. The read files example from S3 would look like this, and there could be other other messaging systems, etc. But it's create streaming table, and then you work with this streaming table. We also have materialized views. Sometimes we say MV for them, and they kind of pre-compute a result and give you this pre-computed but fresh result that you can reuse later. And the question is, when would you reuse such a pre-computed result? And the answer is very often people do this for dashboards, for other downstream systems that need this data, and you don't want to recompute that data. And so those MVs, they work incrementally. Not always, actually, but always if it is possible. And the if it is possible is kind of improving from quarter to quarter. So there's a huge team at Databricks improving those materialized views. And the restrictions, when we can't really increment them, they're getting less and less and less. If you just look at the release notes. So why is this incrementally important? Think about you have like a huge join that is working like with 100 million records, and then the data changes, then only the changed data is incrementally recomputed. So if there's 17 new records, only these 17 are recomputed, but not the 100 million, that you had before. So this incrementalization is a big thing. Sometimes people say, well, Frank, all this streaming data, isn't that awfully expensive? And the answer is, well, no, it actually could be the opposite. If you do this in an incremental way, the way we do it, you can save a lot of money because you're not recomputed the 100 million existing records, but only the 17 ones that are new. Okay, and then you guess it, you have the streaming tables and the materialized views, and you can put them together in a pipeline. That's what we want to do. Very often we then talk about these bronze, silver, and gold layer, which is just an abstraction, a way of thinking of where do we ingest the data in the bronze layer? That's raw data. Where do we combine and join the data? That's the silver layer. And what do we have at the end? That's the gold layer. This is the layer where you have data that is ready to be used downstream. So bronze, silver, gold. It's not etched in stone. If you need another layer in between, go and have it. It's just a standard pattern that is useful for many customers. You can do this in Python, but I'm like super proud to tell you that most of the things except of some meta programming these days. So if you want to create a loop that generates, tables in your pipeline that most people don't do because they want to write them down, code them manually, then you don't need Python. You can have Python. If you're a data scientist, you're more comfortable with Python, go for Python. But even ingesting from Kafka these days can be done with SQL. It's running on serverless. The whole DLT is serverless. So it's simple, efficient, reliable, because you don't need to configure a cluster. You can't misconfigure it because the serverless is auto-scaling fast. You typically have only as many instances as are needed for your load, and then you only pay for those instances that you use, and this is why it becomes cheaper. Now, the interesting thing is sometimes people tell you, well, DLT is serverless. We have serverless notebooks. We have serverless workflows. We have serverless DB SQL. I think you get the picture. We have serverless everything these days. The whole Lakehouse platform is serverless. So SQL, workflows, notebooks, data live tables, everything you want to use as a data engineer is serverless. This is just another slide for workflows. We're going to see that later. It kind of reduces the startup time. You get some additional benefits like better observability, better performance management. There's a lot of extra things you don't immediately think about if you think about serverless, but they come with serverless. So that's certainly the trend. It's certainly what most customers want to do these days. But you could still go back and configure your cluster. For notebooks, much faster startup time. Most notebooks these days, you can just run them as serverless. And we're going to do that actually in the lab as well. And then serverless data live tables. You will see serverless data live tables is one tick mark. You just enable it here, and then you can use them in a serverless way. You don't need to configure a cluster. And it gives you a lot of incremental benefits. So this incremental processing of materialized views, that's one feature that you get with serverless. It also does vertical auto-scaling. That's super amazing. If you think about auto-scaling, typically you have like n boxes that kind of represent a cluster. And then if you need to scale up, there is another box added, but they're all the same size. So this is the horizontal scaling. But DLT also gives you vertical auto-scaling. Sometimes adding one more box to your serverless infrastructure wouldn't be the right thing because what you need is one bigger box. And the system kind of detects this and is able to provision, behind the curtains, you don't see this, a bigger box. And this is the vertical auto-scaling. So amazing features that come with serverless. Now, if we talk about data engineering, sometimes a big topic, we don't do this live and hands-on, but I want to point it out, is change data capture. There's systems that produce a change record, like RDS from Amazon can do that. And then there is a service to ingest that, to put that either into files or Kafka. It could be Debezium, that's an open source project as well. It could be Oracle Golden Gate, where you get this change data stream from Oracle, you put it in Kinesis, and then you can also use DLT and apply these changes into a table. So it's called applied changes. That's the syntax. Don't worry about it. That's just the pointer I wanted to give you. We have Lakehouse Federation. That's also something we're not doing here, but I want to point it out. What we're doing here most of the time and also later in the lab is ingesting data. And that's what customers typically want to do because they want to benefit from this unified lakehouse. They want to have, all the data in the lakehouse and have all these benefits from the unified lakehouse. But sometimes we have customers that say, look, we do have some old system like an Oracle database. We can't turn it off, but we would like to see that data. We want to blend it in. And that's something we can do with data integration or with Lakehouse Federation. So it's very easy to click on this plus to define a new connection to an existing Snowflake, Postgres, MySQL, Glue, Catalog, BigQuery, whatever. And then you just define this connection and you see the same data in your Lakehouse, in the Databricks Lakehouse. So basically what happens is the compute is run on this other system, like on Snowflake, but the data is visible on the Lakehouse, and you can select it, you can work with it, you can, well, do whatever you want. Here is the sample data from one of these. I think this is from the BigQuery, actually. Yeah. So two different things. One is ingestion that we will cover here, and one is data integration with federation, where you just need to configure such a connection pointing to the other system. What you don't see here, and I think we just announced this, is the support for Oracle as well. A lot of people have been asking about Oracle. Right, and now we're kind of almost finished with the slides, and we start with the lab soon. I want to point out, and a lot of people might know that if you have been to the summit last year, at the summit we announced Lakeflow. Now, Lakeflow is the new system. It's where we try to better integrate workflows and DLT and the ingest part. Lakeflow is available now for ingest. So we have, let me see, we have Lakeflow Connect. Yeah, so Lakeflow Connect is available. And you can already ingest data coming from Salesforce, and there's many more managed connectors for Lakeflow Connect coming. And it's like the managed way of doing ingestion. So it's like a four-step UI that you need to configure the connection to Salesforce, and then you can ingest data from Salesforce or from Google Analytics or many, many other systems. And that's available now. And what is coming is Lakeflow pipelines for transformations, which is built on top of DLT pipelines. Sometimes I get this question, hey, Frank, how do we start with Lakeflow pipelines? If we think about using DLT today, it will be built on DLT. So the best way to prepare for Lakeflow pipelines is to work with DLT today. And this is actually what we're doing now. And the same thing is for Lakeflow. Lakeflow jobs for orchestration will be built on workflows. It's just better integrated together, pipelines and jobs and ingestion. So that's a short story. And with this, I want to do like a 2-minute break to catch some breath and to give you the time to connect to your lab environment. Sophia brought up the question survey that we have. So I thought it's just like 3 questions. Maybe use that break to give us a rough idea of, how much you know about Databricks, how many years you spent as a data engineer, and then just let me know if you're more in the team SQL or Python, just as a rough overview. It's always helpful to better tailor those workshops. But you can all see my screen, which is the data pipeline, ladies and gentlemen, that we are going to build together. So I think within 20 to 30 minutes, you should all have a data pipeline like this running. So that's the pipeline view, as I like to call it. Actually, don't even know what our official name for that is. It says graph here. You can have a list view as well. You see the components. If I click on list view, remember I told you about streaming tables, materialized views, but that's definitely the view I prefer. Don't be scared. It will be super easy. Like I was trying to give you a lab where you all have like this success feeling at the end, if you listen carefully to me. So I'm sorry to say this, but it's a little bit like in school. It is very important to do the right things, but I'm telling you the right things. So please listen carefully. Okay, now you say, okay, that looks very complicated. How do we get there? There's 2 things. One is I will give you a lab guide unless you have that already. And the way to get this lab guide is it will be part of the notebooks that I'm going to share with you that you will clone as a GitHub repo. And the way to do this is, well, first of all, you have to be in your workspace. So you need to be connected. That means you need to have this URL, and don't copy this one because yours will look different. And then you will have a login credential and a password, and you need this to connect. And remember what I told you, the chance of not having problems is like so much higher if you use an incognito window. This is also why I'm doing that. Look at what it says here. It says incognito, and that's the key to success. So please use an incognito window and then connect to the lab. So I'm assuming that most of you are connected to the labs. If you're not, if you have like really trouble because I don't know, there's weird settings in your enterprise or whatever, don't get frustrated. You can do the lab later. Then I recommend if you're really struggling, just listen to me, learn that now. Maybe wait until you understood that, and then redo the lab later if you have more time tomorrow. Okay, so the first thing that we need is this GitHub repo, and I'm going to show you how to get there. Well, I actually have it already here, which doesn't help you. So this is why I'm doing a crazy thing. Just going to delete mine. You don't need to do this. You don't have one already. I just delete mine, and then it should look like this. So step number 0 for all of you, get connected. Once you're connected, once you see your workspace where it says here, SQL, data engineering, etc., click on workspace and then click on home. And then you see this empty folder thing. And then you want to clone that repo. And to clone the repo, you go to create and you go to git folder. Click on git folder. And then it says git repo URL. And you probably panic and say, well, now Frank is showing me this huge URL. Don't panic. We will put it in the Zoom. So Sophia, if you could put that GitHub URL in the Zoom again, please. And it looks like this, by the way. I told you it's actually rather easy. It's github.com/databricks/TMM. So if you remember the company name, just remember TMM. So github.com, Databricks, TMM. Okay. I put this here under GitHub repo URL, and then this magically starts to show up like GitHub. It could be another provider, but just leave it as GitHub. And it also says Git folder name is TMM, which is okay. You can change it. Sometimes I change it to labs or whatever, but to just make it as easy as possible for you, just leave it as TMM. And then we do one more thing that makes your life also easier. Click on sparse checkout mode. And on sparse checkout mode, I only want to check out the pipelines workshop, this one. So what are you seeing here? This is the GitHub page. You don't need to go there, but I'm copying cleverly the name here, pipelines workshop. If you're a good typer, like a better typer than me, you could just type it. It's pipelines workshop, capital uppercase P, uppercase W with a hyphen in the middle. And that's what you need to do. So it's the URL, that's the important one, github.com/databricks/TMM. And then all the rest here on the top fills out automatically. You click on sparse checkout mode. This helps us to only check out that one single lab that we want to work with. If you don't do that, you get the whole list of labs, and we do different workshops for AI, for Unity catalog. You can join us again and again if you like. But for this lab, you only need the pipelines workshop. So pipelines-workshop. And if you have all this, you just click on create Git folder, repeating it like a third time for you guys, because once you've done this, you also get to the lab guide, and then your life gets easier. github.com, databricks/TMM. You can copy it from here if you navigate to that site, github.com, databricks/TMM. It should be in the Zoom. And then this fills out automatically. You click on sparse checkout mode, pipelines workshop, and then we click on create folder. It takes a second, and then it shows up like this. And that's great. You see lots of license files and git ignore. We don't need this, and we don't need to README. What we want is this pipelines workshop. So click on that folder. Actually, give it a small, oops, yeah, that's fine. And then you see the notebooks that we're going to work with. Right. And hope you all got there more or less. Once you get there, you can also click on the lab guide. And if you click on the lab guide, what happens is you get this lab guide. And this lab guide is kind of telling you the main steps. So it's kind of repeating what I'm telling you first. And it should kind of enable you to follow the lab on your own, in your own pace. And it says here, number 0, it's very important to keep this open. And what is actually important is that you're like 1,000 people, and honestly, we have one account only, because one Databricks account can support like even more than 1,000 people, like many more. And we all work together in one account. We have different workspaces. So in one account, there could be different workspaces. And all these workspaces, they actually share the same governance system. They share the same Unity catalog. So this is why we have to be a little bit tidy. And this is why each of you should know about their user ID. And your user ID, you can see it here actually. So if you click on that top right circle thing where it says O for me, it says ODL user, and then it gives you that number. And for this number, this is your user ID. So it might be nice just to copy it to have it handy later. So mine would be user underscore and then this number that ends with 381. Why am I telling you this? Because later we share one catalog, and in this catalog, we have a substructure that is called schema, and you will all have your own schema. Now, to find your data, which is always a good thing, you need to remember that name, which is the name of your schema, which is also the name of your user. So this user underscore number from here is good to know, and this is what you should write down or kind of remember. I think there is a small, there's a little bit of code that also kind of retrieves that. I wasn't running this for a while. I think it is still working. Let me run this cell, but I'm not counting on this. Oh, it's still attaching. So let's skip this. The step number 1, it was add a GitHub repo, which is giving you the same instruction again that I gave you. That was the core URL. Let me see this one, https github.com, Databricks TMM. Repo name is TMM, sparse checkout mode, and then it's pipelines workshop. So once you have this, you can just, copy it from here. And then the second step is remember your user ID, just put it in some notebook somewhere. You don't need to run this. Don't worry about that. And then we want to create this Delta Live tables pipeline. Showing you that pipeline again. And the pipeline, I have mine running. You don't have yours running, but I'm telling you how to get there. So I go to Delta Live tables, and mine is running here. And it looks like this. And from this graph view, you can already learn a lot. You can actually see that there is kind of one input source and another one. And a third one. This is kind of hidden, but it's like there's no line coming from the left. So we ingest here and here and here. So there's like 3 different ways or sources for ingestion. And then we take this one and this one, join it together to this one, and then we end up with a materialized view at the end. So typically streaming table for ingestion. That one is a bit strange. I told you we typically use streaming tables for ingestion. Now, this one is only ingesting 6 different rows from a database table. It's not streaming. That's why I modeled it differently. That was my choice. You could run it as a streaming table. It would ingest streaming 6 rows, and then it would finish. That's also possible. But I just wanted to make it more obvious that this is more like a materialized view on a table. It only has 6 rows, and that's why I made it a materialized view. Don't worry about that too much. Like typically we start streaming table and we end with this materialized view, and here is where the joins happen in the middle. Now, you have to have code. This is just a representation of the code. Like half a year, I spoke to someone. He said, I don't like this because like you click and drag and drop this thing together. And I said, no, this is not what I'm doing. What I'm doing is actually I'm writing code, like declarative code, easy to write SQL statements. And then when this is running, this is automatically generated. The source code is visible here. And don't worry, you need to follow. Oops. What's wrong now? Let me see. This is my notebook with the code. And yeah, this is what I want to explain you. Remember, we had these 3 different input sources, and they're coming from different parts of this loan transaction system. And this loan transaction system, it's already running. I can show you. It looks like this. And I have a huge system that is generating this streaming data that is processing loan requests and is kind of giving you integration points, like 3 different integration points. And you see this keeps running. It's 124, but it was switched to 125. And it did all these 1 to 124 while I was talking about the slide. So this should be updating. You see, this is actually running as a serverless notebook. It's connected to serverless. And you don't need to do this. I'm doing that for you. And then we use this data that this online transaction system is producing to ingest and to run our Delta Live tables pipeline. Now, I told you 3 different areas. One is for raw transactions. This is really streaming data. Then there's one, it's just a reference table, mostly static. That's the materialized view. And then there is other data, which is called historical loans. And the way this looks as code is, you already know, it's typically a streaming table for ingestion. Streaming table, we give it a table name. We can give it a comment. That's not important. And then we say, well, this table will be created by selecting everything from cloud files. Now, cloud files means it's a volume, it's a logical thing. And we specify the volume here. It says volumes, demo, loan IO, raw transactions. If I go to here, demo, loan IO, you see these volumes. Now, these volumes, let me see, let me open them in the Catalog Explorer. You see these volumes, they have files, and these files, they come from my online transaction system. So this volume is kind of, these volumes are kind of the interface to my online transaction system. I create the data, you all need to ingest and clean and orchestrate that data. And this is the interface. And the cool thing is that this volume here is a Unity catalog, a governed object. So I can click here on permission. I can set grant and revoke. Well, I can't here because I'm just a user like you are. But on the other side, on the backend system, I could set this and allow all of you users to, well, I already did that because otherwise you wouldn't see it, to read that volume or to, be able to write to that volume, etc. Okay, so that's the interface, this volume. We use the volume here, and we also use it here, and we also use it here for the ingestion. It's like 2 different streaming tables. That's the one with this reference data. So I model it as a materialized view. And then we have the silver layer. You see the joins, like there's an inner join. There is create another with a constraint. Here we have a constraint that is kind of guaranteeing the data quality. We can say constraint. You give it a text. You say we expect that the next payment date is, larger than this date. So you can have logical constraints. And then you can also define what happens if you don't meet these constraints. So typically what we do is we just lock it, but you could also stop the pipeline, or you can raise an alert. That's the 3 possibilities. So data quality constraints that ensure that no bad data is flowing into your tables. And the cool thing is once I have this running, I also see these constraints. If I click on data quality here, you see 100% here was this is not having one. Look at this, like data quality payment should be, this is 100% failed. This is not a good one, but this one has passed 6.4%. It actually depends on your data, which is kind of synthetic data here anyway. But you see these constraints, and how well they work. And that's quite interesting. You also see the schema that is automatically detected. So we can detect a schema, we can enforce a schema. That means once it's detected, there should not be other data coming that is not matching the schema. And we can also have schema evolution, where you say, look, basically the schema shouldn't change, but if there is a new column coming, we want to allow that. And that's all kind of special features that we get, that we get, well, that we get with this system. All right, let's go back to, with autoload, I wanted to say, let's go back to the code. This is my pipeline. Here, I click on source code. You got this. I'm not sure why I'm not seeing this, what I've done here. It's probably just me because I checked this out as the wrong user. So let's not worry about this. Let's go to the pipeline code again. That one. It's the first one. This is the pipeline code. And you see the last layer, which is this layer of materialized views. It's creating 3 materialized views, which we have at the very end. Now, this is a notebook. It's a Databricks notebook. It's written in SQL. But to turn this into pipeline, you should not just run this notebook. You need to give the pipelines some settings. So what I'm doing now is, and that's also what you need to do, is you need to click on Delta Live Tables, and then you create a new pipeline. I have one already, and it was running beautifully here. You see this was the last run, but I'm going to create a new one. Click on Create Pipeline. Now, for the pipeline name, I recommend that you use your user ID, because if you name that like with your first name and your first name is Joe or Janine or whatever, you will have many, many similar names, and it's hard to find them. So give it your user ID for the pipeline name. So I would basically use the 1587381. That one. Doing this like you should do, 1587381. I'm going to make this serverless. And then I'm also saying this should be triggered because we want to trigger that manually. Then we need to navigate to the path, and the path is already available. So we go to users, we go to our user, then you go, that's the GitHub repo that you checked out, TMM, Pipelines Workshop, and then you just select the first one. It's not very difficult, 01 DLT Lone Pipeline SQL. You could add more notebooks. So one pipeline could consist of many notebooks. We don't need that. There is a default catalog, and the default catalog for us is demo. And then we select the schema. And for the schema, again, we use the username. So let me see if I can copy this. So I'm going to use that one here, because we all have the same catalog, and then we branch out by schema. And so mine is the 7381. Okay, no notifications. We don't need anything advanced. It should just run as the current channel. If you want, you can switch it to preview. Then it gives you some more preview features. I don't think we need them here for the course. Let me see if I can stick to that one. And then I click on create, and I try to remember that 7381. And it takes a while because now it needs to, I mean, now you have thousands of people out there, and it needs to grab the compute resources. And even though I selected serverless, I need to click here on start to start that pipeline. It's starting the pipeline 15.8.3.7.1. Okay, so it's grabbing those resources, it's initializing, and then it's setting up the tables, etc. While this is happening, I want to draw your attention, like just wait for that and just like maybe just follow what I'm showing you. Going back to the existing pipeline that I already have. This is the Frank pipeline here. And if I click on one of these streaming tables or materialized views, it doesn't really matter which one, I also get to this table name thing. So mine is under demo pipelines. So the pipelines one is the one that I used. And then it shows up here. So that's the Unity catalog view for this table that is generated by the pipelines. And all of my tables are here under this pipelines. And you could have yours under user. Oh, look at this. These are all your users. Guys, you're doing fantastic. Congratulations. This is amazing. I see all these pipelines up and running. Okay, so we see these tables under that name. And for every table, again, it could be governed with a Unity catalog. We could set permissions. We actually see sample data if there is a data warehouse running, so it might take a second. You see it's already here. This is where you can check the sample data. You get a rough overview of what's happening, like who's the owner, how big is that file, etc. All the things we care as a data engineer. And then the really nice thing is if you click on Lineage, you see how this is connected to other tables, notebooks, workflows, pipelines, dashboards, etc. So this is this interconnected, single unified governance system that shows you how everything is connected. And if you click here on See Lineage, you see the lineage graph, and you see the whole thing from, I need to drill this open. Need to talk to our software engineers to make explode everything. I don't think we have this. And look at this, it gets bigger and bigger. Like this is the end and this is the beginning. Now you say, hey, Frank, doesn't that look very similar to the greenish thing, to the pipeline view? Well, it's not, it is more. You see the pipeline itself, streaming table, materialized view, but then it goes on, there is like another table behind the pipeline. There's a volume where we ingest from the pipeline. So what you get here is this lineage from the very beginning, from the volume, from your file system, from your S3 buckets, through the pipeline to the end. There might be, upstream tables. There might be an AI model. If it is an AI model, you could track back the data, assuming that would be our model. Like, where's the data coming from this model? Well, it's coming from here. Actually, you can drill open this on a column level as well. There's more columns here, and you said this is just getting more and more, you get more and more insights, and you would also see like how joins are operating, etc. So I'm closing this again just to get a little bit more space. But remember this, this pipeline view, and that's very important. That's very useful. And that's something you never get if you stitch together different services or combine open source and, services like those cloud services for data warehouse and other third-party services. This is one of the true, benefits of the Lakehouse. All right, so this should give us the pipeline. I hope you all see your pipeline. I hope this is working for you. Let me go back to this one. Look at this. This was my user. And this is the pipeline graph. So that worked pretty well, which is a very good experience. It's always bad if it doesn't work for me and there's like thousands of you out there, but this works pretty well. So remember, like what you've seen in the lineage diagram is like all this plus, where this data is coming from the volume, another volume here. And then if we had more downstream tables, you would see them here as well. Okay, I think because I've seen all these entries in the catalog and there was like, the positive side effect that I see, there's lots of people just doing that. Works really well for you. If you didn't get there, don't be frustrated. You can, spend 2 more days doing that. We will reshare everything we have, like the GitHub repo, like the lab guide. Once you are connected, you are under workspace, and once you have your Git folder, you also get the lab guide within the Git folder. You just click on lab guide, and that's this guide. Now I briefly skim, like we've done that DLT pipeline in SQL. We looked at the notebook, you run the pipeline, you define the source code. We've seen the pipeline graph. let me go back to, there's a few more things I can show you. Let me go back to this. And yeah, that looks pretty good. Let me see what I wanted to show you. Develop experience, using Lineage. Yep. There is one thing I wanted to point out, and that's actually brand new. And I think you are the very first out there we are talking to about this. If you go to settings, and if you remember, you set the default catalog and the default schema. It says default. It doesn't mean it could be in another catalog or in another schema. Now, I told you just please be quiet, please be tidy. So not don't you have to be quiet anyway because you don't have a microphone. But please be tidy and just use that catalog, define your own schema, and then it will work. The thing is, this is the default catalog, the default schema. So that's the first level of the namespace, second level of the namespace. And then in the code, what we do is in that code, if I click on source code, we don't define catalog and schema. Now, this says, do you want to associate this with a pipeline? That's also it's not completely new, but the new developer experience. If you do that, you have like one notebook, it's showing you the pipeline view, and it's showing you the source code on top. Okay, so that's the developer experience that we have. What I wanted to tell you and show you is that in the pipeline code, you just give the table names for the streaming tables or the materialized views, but you don't specify the catalog and the schema because you've said already that's the default catalog and the default schema. What you could do is you could do and specify them. So I could basically go, I'm not saying you should do that because then we might end up in a little mess, but I could go and say, well, it should be under demo. And then I want to put it under demo dash. Okay, I pre-created that. So if you want it from now on, you can also go and say, this should go to demo. That's a catalog name, and then dash for dashboard. That's my kind of gold table where I want to have my gold table, which will not be the same catalog and schema as the previous silver tables. So if I do this and I rerun that pipeline, if I basically go here and let me open it in the other view and rerun it. I think you can just click on start. I think I want to do a full refresh, which is also cool because it shows us how many of these events we already ingested. Then you will see the tables of these gold tables will show up in the new catalog and new schema name. So that's one of the new things we have. It's called direct publishing mode. And it is pretty cool because you can basically define any catalog and any schema name. Again, if you do this in your enterprise, think about the naming convention. That's super important. Don't just put them anywhere. I think if you look back at these, like you have like 3 different ingestion sources, they might come from, different parts of your system, different parts of your enterprise. Maybe you have more than 3, maybe you have 10 each, and 10 are coming from HR, and maybe 10 are coming from sales, and then there's 10 more, and you wanted to group them into HR and sales, and the third thing, that would be a nice application for using this direct publishing mode. So the thing is, from a technology perspective, now you can do that. Before, this wasn't really possible. So that's a new feature. A lot of you out there told us, we want this. And we said, okay, we make it happen. And now you have it. There will be a blog coming out in a few days, in a very few days, I think, talking about this direct publishing mode. And for the experts amongst you, you might remember that previously we used something like, if you have a streaming table and then you have a materialized view that builds on the streaming table, we say create, well, that's a good one, create streaming table, and then select from, and that's the previous existing browse table in my silver layer. And previously we said live dot, new transactions, and this live keyword is gone as well with direct publishing mode. If you've never heard about this live keyword, just forget about it. You're very lucky, because that caused also some challenges for some customers. We just got rid of this live keyword. You don't have to use it anymore if you're using direct publishing mode. And I think all of the workspaces are now rolled out with this direct publishing mode, or will be in a few days. But I think all of them, like the latest email that I saw, said you can do this already today. So give it a try. And you're probably the very first ones in this workshop to experience that. Okay, I'll be quiet for maybe 30 seconds to give you a little time to consider this. And then we do two more things. I'm going to show you the assistant. And then I'm also going, oh, look at this. I think this just updated. And this was just running. So it is the new demo dash new loan balances catalog demo dash. No, I think it's still running. It will show up later, but it's coming. I tried that before. Trust me. All right. So let's go to the second lab. That's the small one. That's the one in between DLT and workflows. So go to Workspace, click on your GitHub folder, click on Pipelines Workshop, then click on Serverless Notebook Assistant. This is a super small notebook, and I just built them for you to get, the first hands-on experience with our Databricks assistant. First of all, it should be connected to serverless. So go to connect, connect it to serverless. Depending on the amount of thousands of people out there, it might take a second. This worked really quickly. So I'm connected to serverless. I can run this notebook that is actually running a little bit of Spark code in a serverless way, which, if you're a data engineer and you know about Spark, is a big thing, because honestly, Spark is very, very attached to clusters and stuff. But well, our CTO is the guy who kind of was the first committer to Spark. He's the guy who invented Spark. So we put a lot of effort into making the notebooks that are running Spark serverless, and this is what you see now. It's connected to serverless. There is no cluster behind that. And just let me try that. Let me run that cell. You can do shift return. It's just clicking on it. Typically, it takes like a few seconds for the first time. It gets serverless compute. And then once it gets the serverless compute, it might take, I don't know, another 2-3 seconds, depending on how many people are out there and what is the warm up, and then it comes up with this. So I was running serverless. I was running Spark code on a serverless notebook. In the cell, I'm just say display, create this range to 5, and then convert it to data frame. That's the name of the data frame. Very unimaginative, serverless, and counting from 0 to 4. That's the whole thing. And now you say, well, I'm a SQL person. I don't really know what's going on here, Frank. Can you help me? And the answer is, well, I can help you, but only now. But like in 20 minutes, you're on your own. And then if you need help, you click here, you click on the assistant, and you say /explain. And if you click on /explain, the assistant opens here, and it's telling you, hopefully, what this code is doing. It says server error. Let me try that again. Explain. No, it works much better. I don't know what happened. Sometimes there's a little glitch. Well, it says, this is Python code. It's doing Apache Spark. It does basically the Spark range to 5, generates a data frame, puts 0 to 4. The assistant understands that this is not 1 to 5, but 0 to 4. It kind of, it knows, it's very good to predict this output. That's what I'm trying to say. and it's giving you good explanations. You can actually use the assistant to create code. So we can say, give me a materialized view that reads from customer, and it gives you that, the rough structure of the SQL code or the Python code. That's possible. We actually keep improving the DLT part, especially. It's pretty good with a standard SQL, and we try to make it even better with DLT. And it is like good for generating code, but it's amazing for explaining code. So I use it a lot, to let it explain code that colleagues have written. So that's really good. Sometimes, I mean, I don't know who's doing that, but I heard people sometimes copy code from Stack Overflow. I've never done that. You are probably never doing that, but there are people out there doing that. I was told. I'm not sure who that could be. And then this code looks like this. No problem. We run that cell, and then let's see what is the output. Oh my God, this is a syntax error. And then you think, damn, I copied that code. I don't know how to fix that. There's lots of parentheses and, those square brackets, and which one is too much, which one is not enough. Click on diagnose error, and it says, it should work like this, or click here and say /fix. And it says, look, this is what we suggest. And you just, if you think that makes sense, you accept it and you run that cell, and fingers crossed. Let's look at this. It's waiting, and then it's running, and it should run. This is how to fix code that you copied from Stack Overflow. Don't quote me on this, guys. Don't never copy code from Stack Overflow. I always tell people, use these assistants as a sparring partner, but not to outsource the thinking. So use them to help you, and you see this is working perfectly well. Then if you look at this notebook, like sometimes people tell me, Frank, we love that notebook, but you should have documented that. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so guilty. That's true. Now, in this case, it was done by intention. So if your boss tells you, you need to document your code better, you click here. This is just showing 1, 2, 3. That's not really documentation. But what you do is you click here, you click on suggest a title, and then it says fixing syntax error in create data frame. Isn't that good? I mean, that's as good as I could have documented that code. Same thing here, document code. Let's see what it comes up with, this Spark range to data frame. Display a Spark range data with column blah, blah, blah. That's pretty good, I would say. Again, I'm not telling you always take what the AI system is giving you, because sometimes, I mean, you're in charge. You need to make sure that this makes sense. But it's fantastic to have like a first version, and then you say, well, sorry, I'm the data engineer. I want to change that, like make it better, make it more readable. And that's like a very, very good start. So the takeaway in this lab is, and again, you have this lab on GitHub. You can play with this anytime. You can show it to your manager, to your colleagues. First of all, we're using a serverless notebook. Second of all, we're using the assistant. You can use it to document code, to actually, this is pretty well documented, but you can also say /document for the code. You can generate code. You can fix code. Here, I'm literally, because I want you to get started, we're literally doing a little bit of Python. But if you do more, you can also, reference tables. It will understand what is in Unity Catalog already. So if you are in Unity Catalog and you have, stuff in Unity Catalog like tables, and you give these tables annotations, it will understand these annotations and make good use of all this. So it's much more than just on a code level. It also understands the data and the metadata. And probably I can't change this here. Well, guys, you haven't run that much. Let me see. But anyway, we can add annotations to tables this is what I was doing. later, no, before. Yeah, okay. Right. So we have 10 more minutes, and if you are okay with that, and you can't say no because you don't have a microphone. Just joking, sorry. If you're okay with that, I want to spend the last 10 minutes on workflows. Remember, I told you that workflows is pulling all the things together. It's orchestrating everything in the Lakehouse. And now most of you have a data pipeline, one that looks like this graph. And the thing is, what if you need to do more than, ingest, transform your data, clean up your data? If you have steps that happen behind this, like the next thing, the downstream thing, and this is what I want to show you. How do you put this together? How do you orchestrate this? And the answer is this is where we need workflows or jobs. And what I do is there is nothing running. There is no job right now. I click on create job, and I give this a name, like this is demo February 4th. Maybe use your user ID if you want. And this is the first task. Name it ingest. The type of this first task is Delta Live Tables pipeline. And the pipeline is the one that I built. Now I'm tempted. I'm using the second one that I built together with you guys. And basically that's it. If you look at this, I can have notifications. I can use parameters. I can trigger this. Right now, I just want to create that task. Now I have one task and you say, okay, that's not a big thing, but I want to add another task, and this other task, I'm just playing a little bit. I just say, I guess I have a notebook, and in this notebook, this is, to update another system, and it's of type notebook, and the source of this notebook, it's actually in my workspace, and the path to that notebook is users, TMM, you get this pipelines workshop, update downstream. This is like a toy notebook that I just wrote for you to show you a simple workflow. And here we go. We have a simple workflow consisting of 2 steps. First step is the ingestion. Second step is a update downstream system. Click on run now. It's spinning up. It is actually, let me close this and open this here. It is actually using serverless. Oops, here it says serverless. I was looking for that. So that task is executing as serverless. That pipeline task is also executing as serverless. Here you see it says compute serverless. So the whole workflow and the DLT and the notebook, it's all serverless. That's basically what I told you. And then if I click on runs, you see the runs. This is the total execution time. It's kind of matrix view. If I do more runs, you will see more of these columns. You see the ingest part is happening. It's green at the moment. Well, it's still working. That's the pipeline. So you can click on the pipeline, see what's happening in the pipeline. You can also, well, this is already happening. You see the update details, and you see again the compute, etc. So you get this deep visibility on that workflow level, and this is still executing, and then it needs to execute that other thing here. Click on timeline. That's pretty cool. It gives you this Gantt view. You can use it to find the critical path in your workflow, to optimize your workflow. One of the things you could have in a workflow is also a task, which is a SQL task here. You can just say add task, and it would be a SQL query. If it's like a SQL query that consists of several commands, you could actually break that down if you click here and you go to that run and you go to timeline. It would show you the different SQL commands. And then if you are like it's not working here because I only have one. It would also break down the times it takes per SQL command. So you can go from a workflow level to a task level to a SQL command level, and then even drill deeper into the lower level things of, what's going on. Now you say, hey, Frank, you wanted to show us a simple workflow, it breaks, it says connection refused. And I'm telling you, look, I put this in, it was intentionally. What we can do is in a workflow, we can actually say, I want to fix a certain workflow. I want to repair that run. That means I fix the notebook and then just click on repair run. And what happens is it would just run the nodes, well, that caused the trouble and the ones after that node. So if that one costs you a lot of, runtime, like, 10 minutes, and that one is only 1 minute, it would just run the 1 minute one. Now you see this is like artificially erasing this connection error. I built this in for you. So if you wanted, you could just comment this out and then rerun it, and then the whole workflow would be running. But I think this is like, as I told you, it was done intentionally. It also shows us if we click on these job runs. Hang on, where are we? Yeah, you see it here, and you see it also here in this timeline view, and then you can start and debug. Right. So this is the rough overview of workflows, and I encourage you to create your own workflow. Do the pipeline first, and then a simple two-step workflow. Run the ingest pipeline, run this update notebook. If you want, go to that notebook and remove that error. That would make a lot of sense, of course. That's my job. And that's, again, this matrix view. And you see this one went wrong. And you could then just start and debug it. A couple of things I wanted to point out. If you want to start with DLT, there's a pretty good DLT getting started guide. I am very biased because I wrote it. It's a step-by-step instruction guide. If you say, hey, I want to do this again, I don't have Cloud Labs, I don't even want to start with a GitHub repo, that's the thing to start with. Easy to follow step-by-step guide. If you Google for DLT getting started guide, it's on databricks.com, getting started guide. It's literally an easy step-by-step guide. I highly recommend it. Just clicking here, you can scroll that. You can copy and paste the code for the notebook. You don't even need to use a GitHub repo if that's not your thing. We work with data quality expectations, the pipeline settings. Maybe look at this. That's the pipeline, maybe one of the easiest pipelines you will ever see. And well, just go try it, have fun. It's also teaching you a little bit about the assistant. And there is one more thing. Sometimes, we ingest from volumes because I think a lot of people ingest files. Sometimes people say, well, but how about Kafka, Kinesis? You mentioned it, but then you didn't show us. It is hard to show you everything in 90 minutes. This is one of the references that I want to point out. It's another blog. I was doing a little project with two NASA engineers. And the fun thing is that NASA is giving you data coming from space, live streaming data coming from space about supernovas exploding or imploding in space, however you want to see that. And it's like super easy to access that data and process that data, again, using, guess what, DLT. And you can do it in SQL. So in SQL, you can read from this Kafka topic that is provided by NASA. It's a public topic, so you're free to use it for, any of the trials that you want to do. And there is a nice block and oops. There is a block and damn, my slides disappeared. Sure. Yep, coming back to that. Yes, so if you want to check that out, it's a blog and a GitHub repo. Then we have the demo center. If you say, well, I don't want to see more code and play with more code, I just want to see some demos, go to databricks.com/demos. There's a really nice one for workflows, giving you an overview about workflows. There's good stuff for DLT. The Bakehouse demo that we used at the summit, you can see there's 2 versions of this now. And if you have any technical questions, sign up for the community.databricks.com. So if the Q&A folks couldn't help you with an answer because, it was too detailed, you had to provide, some configuration file, maybe the community forum is a good place to post that. community.databricks.com. And having said that, I want to thank you for being here. We have trials, free trials. There's actually a new trial environment for, serverless trials, which is very interesting. You can get there via the QR code. I want to say thank you, but I also want to say thank you to Sophia and all the folks in the Q&A team. They answered lots of questions. They did all the hard work. I was just showing you the demo and the slides. They did the hard work. Thank you to them. And well, I hope you enjoyed the event. Thank you for being here. We run other events covering Unity Catalog, covering SQL, covering AI. Just go to databricks.com/events and you will find them. And having said that, thank you again and see you soon. Bye-bye.